Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Soul Land 2 Part 217 based on novel. So let's start. The Sun Moon Empire might be the best in terms of soul tools, but they had their own problems too. In terms of soul masters, there was a large difference between them and the three empires of the original Dolor continent. If not for the fact that they had recruited a batch of soul masters from the Heavenly Soul Empire, they would probably not have been able to form these four new armies. Furthermore, many of those three-ringed soul masters had relied on medication to reach their cultivations. It wasn't stable. However, whether their abilities were stable or not wasn't important. The most important thing was whether they could use soul tools. Because of this, the Sun Moon Empire had used all its resources to manufacture soul tools, and hoped to quickly equip its new soul engineer legions. With these legions and their soul formations, they would be strong everywhere. Xu Qianran nodded. He knew it very well in his heart, and quickly said, "Quickly equip the first two armies with the newly manufactured soul tools. They must be prepared to obey any orders." "Yes, Your Majesty." The military chief acknowledged his words. Xu Qianran turned to his chief minister and said, "Chief Minister, please continue." The chief minister said, "We have to quickly tap into our strengths if we want to find those guys. I suggest we deploy the preparatory troops to the north to conduct a carpet search. At the same time, we'll activate the farmers to search the wilderness. Whoever can provide satisfactory information will be greatly rewarded. We can first determine where they are before taking them out in one fell swoop. Your Majesty, I suggest that you quickly give orders to send rations to the north. Eastern Sun City and Oak City have been looted, causing rations in the north to be sorely lacking. We need to supplement them quickly. Otherwise, there'll be chaos among the people." Xu Qianran nodded and said, "All right, we'll follow the chief minister's suggestions." Report. Outside the palace, an anxious shout could be heard. All the officials broke out into a cold sweat as they watched the reporting soldier. If he had come earlier, when Xu Qianran was still furious, his life would have been in danger. That soldier didn't wait outside, but charged into the palace holding a token instead. The guards outside the palace quickly gave way when they saw his token. They didn't stop him at all. All the officials were also astonished when they saw the token in this trooper's hand. A flying blazon? This so-called flying blazon was an information transmission method invented by the Sun Moon Empire. Whoever carried this flying blazon was at least a six-ringed soul engineer. He would be equipped with a powerful flying-type soul tool. Under urgent conditions, he would be allowed to use this flying blazon. It was the fastest way of transmitting information. Xu Qianran set a rule. As long as the messenger had a flying blazon, it had to be presented in front of him no matter when it arrived. This was even if he was sleeping in the middle of the night. Every flying blazon soul engineer had such a token. In the Sun Moon Empire, he would be given any help he needed no matter which county he passed through. The soul engineer quickly entered the palace and kneeled down on one knee in the middle of the hall. "Your Majesty, a flying blazon from the front lines." Report. Xu Qianran became a little tense. At such a time, only Zhu Zi had the right to use such an information transmission method. This also meant that this flying blazon had come from her. Under what circumstances would such a transmission method be used instead of long-distance transmission through aerial surveillance soul tools? The bad news from the north had already dampened Xu Qianran's mood. He was really afraid of further bad news. A box that was formed using a confidential soul tool was brought in front of Xu Qianran. There was a secret marking on the box, an arrangement between Zhu Zi and Xu Qianran. Only he knew how to open this box. After pressing the box a few times and entering a series of words, the box clicked and opened, revealing a neatly folded piece of paper. At this point, all the officials were quiet. They were really afraid of bad news coming from the front lines. Xu Qianran opened the piece of paper. It only had 2 lines of writing on it. He glanced at it before he stood up suddenly. As it affected his prosthetic leg, his body even shook a little before he managed to stabilize himself as he shot up from his throne. All the officials shuddered at the same time when he stood up. What was going on? Xu Tianran stood where he was with an indescribable, complex look on his face. After a full minute, he slowly put the piece of paper down. Then, his gaze swept across his officials. Even the chief minister knew that something big had happened. He slowly stood up from his seat too. Xu Tianran said, "The war god emperor sends news that our army fought the Heavenly Soul and Do Ling empires during the wee hours of the morning, defeating them. The imperial family of the Heavenly Soul Empire has been wiped out, and all surviving members of the regime have been removed. The remaining troops of the Do Ling Empire have all fled under the protection of Shrek Academy. In 3 days, our army will occupy the entire Heavenly Soul Empire apart from Shrek City." Inside the palace, it was so silent that one could hear a pin drop. The chief minister's beard shook, and he immediately fell to his knees. He exclaimed, "The heavens have blessed the Sun-Moon Empire. The heavens have blessed the Sun-Moon Empire. Long live His Majesty." All the officials only reacted now, and they all fell to their knees. Xu Tianran laughed. His laughter was filled with coldness and excitement. The paper in his hand had already been crushed. The Heavenly Soul Empire, one of the empires with the longest history in the Dolor continent, has been wiped out by me. The territories of the Sun-Moon Empire have expanded once again. In the near future, the entire Dolor continent will be under me. When that happens, I'll rename the entire continent the Sun-Moon Continent. Tang Wutong sat quietly beside Hui Yuhao and only watched him silently. Both of them had been here in this underwater world for some time, but she didn't know how many days had passed. After that mermaid completed her spirit fusion, Hui Yuhao went into deep meditation, and released strong spiritual undulations from his entire body. Li Ya, the mermaid, was the first pure spiritual type spirit that Hui Yuhao had fused with. She had even been a 100,000-year soul beast. Her spiritual origin and soul energy were strong, far beyond Hui Yuhao's expectations. Although her soul was critically hurt, her fusion with Hui Yuhao still managed to upgrade his spiritual sea significantly. In his deep meditation, Hui Yuhao's spiritual sea was seething. His solid spiritual sea also started to revolve like a whirlpool. His soul core became more stable, and its internal revolutions actually slowed down by more than 10 times compared to before. However, the compressed soul power in it also became 10 times more viscous too. The tier of his spiritual strength was increasing, enabling him to be completely immersed in his deep meditation. He even obtained the different types of secret tricks that merfolks use to control spiritual power from Li Ya. It was a very magical feeling for Hui Yuhao. To him, this was extremely important. I believe eldest senior and the others must be very anxious now. Tang Wutong silently thought to herself. However, she liked this feeling for some reason. She was just silently protecting Hui Yuhao and watching him cultivate. It was a very nice and peaceful feeling. In this deep underwater world, no one would come to disturb them. Regarding spirits, Tang Wutong had already had a detailed chat with the Princess of the Sea about them. Since Hui Yuhao was cultivating, she replaced him in completing the mission. With her earlier sea god's descent and how Hui Yuhao had offered Li Ya an alternative way of living, everything was very successful. The Princess of the Sea agreed to coordinate with humans when it came to spirit fusion in the future. However, this was only an outlook. After all, the ice sea could only be entered from the ice sea, whereas the ice plains of the extreme north were in the Dolor continent. When Yuhao wakes up from his cultivation, he should be thrown into the war again. I wonder what the situation is like outside. The Sun-Moon Empire should know what we're doing over here by now. I wonder if they'll pull their troops back. Perhaps not. After all, we've not done enough yet. We haven't made contact with the spectral demiplane. Eldest senior and the rest must certainly be anxious. However, the warehouses are full of food. It can support 3 soul engineer legions for a long time. As for water, Yuhao specially constructed a reservoir when they initially entered the demiplane. At the same time, he used necromancy to cleanse it. Bei Bei is personally in charge of watching it. He should be able to maintain at least 3 months of clean water. Just as Tang Wutong was deep in her thoughts, she suddenly furrowed her brow, and subconsciously turned to Hui Yuhao. The immense spiritual undulations coming from his body suddenly retracted, and his entire body shuddered. He's about to wake up. Tang Wutong was delightfully surprised as she looked at him. At this moment, Hui Yuhao's body started to shine extremely brightly. The bright light even caused Tang Wutong to shut her eyes temporarily and turn around. The entire underwater world turned extremely bright. Strong spiritual undulations were released, and a golden figure separated from Hui Yuhao's body. This figure was around 2 meters tall, and she was ravishing. The paleness and weakness from before had completely vanished. She had sky-blue eyes and hair, which flowed behind her back. There was a golden crown on her head. When she appeared, it seemed as if captivating music was playing in the sea. Yes, it was Li Ya. When the Princess of the Sea and Li Jing sensed this, they immediately rushed over. When the three of them reunited once again, they all hugged and cried. Hui Yuhao also finally opened his eyes now. The color of his eyes hadn't changed, and he no longer exuded bright light anymore. However, Tang Wutong sensed something indescribable when she saw his eyes again. Something in his eyes had changed. It was as if they could cut through heaven and earth. The surrounding seawater separated on its own, and allowed Tang Wutong to finally have a feel of the ground. Hui Yuhao drifted up and came in front of her, giving her an embrace. "My love, sorry to have worried you." Tang Wutong was a little astonished as she looked at him and asked, "You can control seawater too?" Hui Yuhao smiled and answered, "Of course not. But Li Ya can. She's now my spirit. I can control some of her abilities. Take a look." As he spoke, Hui Yuhao lifted his right arm. There was a thin layer of golden scales on it. Clearly, it was the same type of scales as were on Li Ya's tail. All this while, Hui Yuhao had already possessed the rest of the soul bones he needed. He even had the dark golden terror claws. He only lacked a right arm bone. Li Ya had possessed the last soul bone he needed. After the fusion was completed, he finally had a soul bone for every part of his body. This was the best a soul master could achieve. As Hui Yuhao had not yet become a title Dolor, Tang Wutong felt that her abilities were a little better than his. However, even she couldn't see through him after this fusion, even though she was the most familiar with him. She couldn't tell exactly how strong he was. Hui Yuhao pulled Tang Wutong and only proceeded forward after the 3 mermaids had separated from one another. Then, he bowed to the Princess of the Sea. Li Ya's eyes were red. Although she wasn't nourished by the manifold mysterious ice essence like Hui Yuhao's other spirits, it was important to note that Hui Yuhao had managed to successfully form a spiritual soul core. After Li Ya fused with him, he benefited greatly. However, his pure and immense spiritual power didn't just nourish her soul. It also enhanced it. It was crucial not to forget that there was a streak of divine sense in Hui Yuhao's soul. Although it was only just a little, it was still very helpful for a spiritual-type soul beast. Li Ya nodded gently at Hui Yuhao and she became slightly embarrassed. "Thanks, Yuhao. You gave me a new life. You cleansed my hatred. You are my benefactor. I'll follow you forever." After listening to her words, Tang Wutong felt that it was a little awkward. Fortunately, Li Ya didn't adopt the appearance of a female human. She managed to calm herself down. She clearly knew how deep Hui Yuhao's feelings were for her. Even Wang Chua, who looked exactly like her, couldn't win him over. Hui Yuhao nodded at Li Ya and smiled. "Your Highness, it's fate that decreed you were able to survive." The Princess of the Sea sighed and said, "From now on, I'll be in your care." As she looked at Li Ya before looking at Li Jing, who had just inherited Li Ya's lineage and whose tail had just turned golden, the Princess of the Sea let out a long sigh. This was the best result they could get, the fortunate part out of the misfortune. Hui Yuhao also didn't know how long he had been here. He quickly asked the Princess of the Sea, who shocked him with her reply. "What? We've already been here for 10 days. After hearing her words, Hui Yuhao's expression immediately changed. After completing his fusion with Li Ya, He had clearly felt his spiritual power growing until its limit. Furthermore, he was also certain that his spiritual soul core had reached the tier of a transcendent allure. He even wanted to use this opportunity to form his second soul core. This was because there was no safer place than this underwater world. However, after listening to the words of the Princess of the Sea, he immediately removed that thought from his head. He could not delay any further. Things outside were probably much more chaotic after 10 days. He didn't know what the situation was like at the front lines. He was also unable to deal any repeated blows to the Sun-Moon Empire. The earlier strategy that he came up with was likely to be greatly affected. In addition, his teammates were also waiting anxiously in the demoplane. Hui Yuhao couldn't be bothered about the reluctance of the Princess of the Sea to leave her daughter right now. He quickly bade goodbye to them. Under the personal escort of the Princess of the Sea, he drifted towards the surface. No matter how unwilling the Princess of the Sea was, she needed to part ways with her daughter. After the pair bade each other farewell, Li Yue fused back into Hui Yuhao's body. Hui Yuhao and Tang Wutong unleashed their Class 9 flying-type soul tools and immediately activated them to reach their highest speed. They flew towards the Sun-Moon Empire. Tang Wutong grabbed Hui Yuhao's hand tightly as she felt how tense he was. Since time has already passed, there's no point brooding over it. Although 10 days isn't very short, it's also not that long over the course of a war. You don't have to be too worried either. When we return, we can immediately begin our operation. All right. After this buffer period, Hui Yuhao finally calmed down. Being anxious wasn't going to solve the problem. The best way was to continue his operation. The return journey was much smoother than coming to the IC. The entire aquatic world treated Hui Yuhao as their best human friend because of his fusion with Li Yue. Hui Yuhao and Tang Wutong only took an hour before they returned to shore as they drained their soul power without any further thought. Hui Yuhao revealed a mysterious look on his face before he even stepped on land. He immediately muttered a few incantations before opening the spectral door. 10 days had also passed in the spectral demoplane. Bei Bei, Xu Sanxia, and Jiang Nan were still very emotionally stable. However, they were still a little anxious, given that a long time had passed. Why is Hui Yuhao still not back or contacted anyone yet? Something must have happened to him. Don't tell me that he's met with danger in the IC. Furthermore, they couldn't leave the demoplane without him. All they could do was wait around. If something really happened to him, they would most likely be trapped here for their entire lives, or at least until their supply of food and water ran out. Just as everyone was becoming more and more anxious, the spectral door finally opened, much to their relief. Hui Yuhao and Tang Wutong had finally returned. Yuhao, where have you been? Why are you back only now? Jiang Nan snapped as she saw Hui Yuhao. It would have been great even if he had only sent a letter. Over the past 10 days, they had felt very tortured. They still had to train the members of the 3 Soul Engineer Legions. Hui Yuhao immediately called for a meeting and recounted everything he had experienced in the IC. After hearing his words, everyone stopped blaming him. They only had lingering fear in their hearts. Hui Yuhao felt the same way too. Eldest senior, before I carry out any mission on my own in the future, I must first release all of you from this demoplane. Otherwise, if I... All right, quit this depressing talk. Now is not the time to talk about that. What should we do next? Do you have any ideas? Bei Bei said. Hui Yuhao nodded and opened up a map. He said, I've been delayed in the IC for 10 days. It's both a good and bad thing. Because of this 10-day buffer, the Sun-Moon Empire will definitely subconsciously think that we passed through their borders in the same manner as when we appeared in the south, just that we used some kind of method to avoid their aerial surveillance soul tools. We must be quick and deal them a heavier blow. Xu Qianran is an anti-hero. If we don't inflict pain that's intolerable on him, he won't pull his troops from the front lines easily. That's why we must be quick and vicious. I just don't know what the situation at the front line is right now. Only Hui Yuhao could return to Shrek Academy to gather intelligence. Under such a circumstance, returning to gather intelligence was meaningless. He would waste more time if he went there and returned. Even if he knew what was going on at the front lines, wouldn't he still need to return to target the Sun Moon Empire if he wanted to change the situation of the war? This was why Hu Yuhao quickly figured that he needed to stay and continue to inflict internal damage on the Sun Moon Empire. In that way, they would be forced to pull their troops back. This was the real strategy. After a simple communication of the plan to the rest, Hu Yuhao and Tang Wutong left the demoplane again after the meeting ended. In fact, the 3 Soul Engineer legions in the demoplane should be let out for a short breather. However, time was tight. There was a lack of time for them to do so. Only news of Hu Yuhao's return was relayed to them, and they were allowed to watch as Hu Yuhao left again. At the same time, they were informed that the next fight was about to break out again. After hearing that a fight was about to break out soon, the members of the 3 Soul Engineer legions all rubbed their palms in excitement. Their morale was boosted once again, which left Hu Yuhao in shock. What Hu Yuhao didn't know was that Bei Bei had set up a merit system while he had been gone. The main point of this system was to reward those who contributed significantly. The resources, gems, and gold soul coins that they had obtained earlier were mostly given out by Bei Bei. Bei Bei told every soul engineer in the 3 Soul Engineer legions that they would be handsomely rewarded once they attained victory in any fight. They could choose from gold soul coins, soul tools, and other resources. As for how much they were rewarded, it depended on the merit they accumulated. After setting this system up, he immediately handed out rewards. Over the past 10 days, morale didn't fall because of the presence of these rewards. In addition, with the news that they were about to fight, how could these soul engineers not be excited, given the potential benefits they could reap? These soul engineers were all intelligent. Many of them chose not to take gold soul coins. Almost all of them wanted soul tools. From the earlier looting sessions they had participated in, which soul engineer didn't manage to equip himself with more soul tools? The stronger a soul engineer was, the more advantages he would have. This was because more advanced soul tools could only be used by stronger soul engineers. Hu Yuhao's 4th Soul Engineer Legion reaped the greatest rewards. The 4th Soul Engineer Legion inherited all the heavy soul tools they had looted in the fights earlier. The other 2 Soul Engineer Legions had no use for these heavy soul tools. Since this was the case, the 4th Soul Engineer Legion didn't stand on ceremony and took control of all the heavy soul tools. After all, Juga Divine crossbow cannons couldn't move very quickly. What was the disadvantage of having more heavy weapons? As a result, the 4th Soul Engineer Legion's strength grew the most. It was just that they became more and more inflexible as a result. After leaving the demoplane, Hu Yuhao and Tang Wutong held hands as they rose into the sky. They proceeded towards the south of the Sun Moon Empire. As they flew in the air, Hu Yuhao also unleashed his spiritual detection. The overall size of his spiritual sea had grown by 1/3. His soul core and spiritual power had also changed dramatically. The most direct benefit that he obtained was that his spiritual detection's effective range had reached a diameter of more than 20,000 meters, twice what it was before. This number even exceeded the effective range of the most advanced aerial surveillance soul tool that the Sun Moon Empire could manufacture. Just this skill could be considered an absolute divine skill in war. Very soon, Hu Yuhao found many soldiers from the Sun Moon Empire in the wilderness. They were scattered, and seemed to be searching for something. While things were bleak in Eastern Sun City, the city wasn't too chaotic. However, no Soul Engineer Legion was present there. It seems like the Sun Moon Empire has responded quite quickly. Rations should have been sent to resupply Eastern Sun City. Otherwise, things wouldn't be so stable. Hu Yuhao wasn't going to attack Eastern Sun City at this point. The benefits that could be reaped from so were very small. Furthermore, that would only serve to expose his tracks. He unleashed his imitation, which concealed both him and Tang Wutong in the air. Under the effect of Hu Yuhao's immense spiritual power, even oscillation detectors couldn't detect his presence now, much less aerial surveillance soul tools. As for spiritual power detectors, they could at most cover the size of a military camp. Hu Yuhao had made himself completely invisible to the Sun Moon Empire. They flew quickly through the air. Hui Yuhao didn't rest at all as he flew with Tang Wutong. They flew for 4 hours before they slowed down and returned to the ground to rest. Hui Yuhao opened the map and conducted a simple check of where they were. Through the changes in the air temperature, Hui Yuhao was completely sure that they were in the south of the Sun-Moon Empire. Hui Yuhao sensed the humid air and was annoyed as he commented, "I still prefer the cold in the north. Over there, my fighting strength is higher by at least 30%. Tang Wutong covered her mouth and laughed. "Didn't your journey to the Ice Sea teach you enough lessons?" Hui Yuhao nodded deeply and replied, "Of course it has. This journey has taught me not to run and fight in someone else's place. I won't even stand a chance. While the Princess of the Sea is powerful, we might still have stood a chance of fleeing even if we can't defeat her on land or at a fairer venue. However, in the depths of the sea, we were really trapped, and had nowhere to run." Tang Wutong asked, "Have you chosen a target?" Hui Yuhao nodded and pointed at the map. "Seajoy City." A smirk appeared on Hui Yuhao's lips. It was not his first time visiting this place. When he and the others from the Tang sect snuck into the Sun-Moon Empire by water to save the young talents who were participating in the Continental Advanced Soul Master Soul Dueling Tournament, they passed by this city. They had even rented a boat there. Hui Yuhao chose to attack this city for 2 reasons. First, it was an important port in the south of the Sun-Moon Empire. Second, it was a way to confuse the Sun-Moon Empire. At least, they might be misled that enemies could be trying to invade them from the sea. After half a day, Hui Yuhao and Tang Wutong appeared in Seajoy City. Hui Yuhao re-exited the city after making 1 round around it. He opened the spectral door outside the city and summoned the 3 Soul Engineer Legions. The city was very small. There was no need to deploy so much manpower. However, the Soul Engineers had been stuck in the demiplane for too long. Hence, Hui Yuhao wanted to let them out for a breather. Seajoy City was the perfect place to do so. The defense in the south was much slacker than in the north. This was because the aquatic soul beasts in the south were weaker than those in the north. Furthermore, they were only active in the deep sea. The Sun-Moon Empire had specialized fleets to capture oceanic creatures in the southern sea regions. After all, there weren't any icebergs or other such extreme weather in the south. It made carrying out operations much easier. There were only 2,000 soldiers stationed in Seajoy City. They were only ordinary soldiers, and their abilities were all mixed. 30 Zhuge divine crossbow cannons were fired at the same time. One side of the city walls was immediately destroyed. Next was a simple step pillage. The 3 largest warehouses in Seajoy City were completely cleaned out. Not only were there rations in these 3 warehouses, but there were also many special products and money that came from several southern coastal cities. Compared to the north, there was much more money, and much fewer rations. After all, the city was by the sea, which meant that food was not in short supply. After pillaging the entire city, Hui Yuhao didn't even usher the Soul Engineers back into the spectral door. Instead, he directly sent them out. The Tang sect and 4th Soul Engineer Legion scattered in 2 different directions, attacking 2 different nearby cities. The southern cities were richer than the northern cities, and there were many more of them too. From the situation in Seajoy City, it could be inferred that the defenses in the other nearby cities weren't going to be very strong either. This was especially so since the 2 nearby cities that they attacked were even smaller. In just 1 day, 3 cities were completely plundered. As food wasn't scarce in the south, Hui Yuhao even decided not to rob the food from these cities. He only targeted the money, as well as trying to find rare metals. Although there weren't many rare metals in these southern cities, there were still some aerial surveillance soul tools in the sky. Taking them down was equivalent to obtaining rare metals. After the 3 cities were completely plundered, Hui Yuhao reopened the spectral door in the wilderness and sent the 3 Soul Engineer Legions back into his spectral demiplane. After this 1 day of activity, they became much more refreshed and energetic. This was especially since a lot of the money that was looted was divided and given to them directly. These Soul Engineers were very free inside the demiplane. Under the organization of those from the Tang sect, the three Soul Engineer legions even started to explore the boulder houses in the Demiplane. Even though this Demiplane wasn't the most aesthetic of places, it had great utility. It was beginning to develop some scale. They could even leave their valuables in the Demiplane when they went out to fight. This enabled them to be equipped properly for fights. After returning to the Demiplane, Hu Hao checked the map and chose other, more populous cities. These cities were their targets for the next day. Just like this, Hu Hao mysteriously led the three Soul Engineer legions and overran 12 medium-sized cities in the south of the Sun-Moon Empire. He didn't choose major cities, as they were likely to be better defended. In addition, the medium-sized cities were lacking in manpower, as the front line needed men. Those 12 cities were plundered completely. The amount of money that was taken could fill countless giant warehouses. Right now, the Soul Engineers weren't even tempted by gold soul coins anymore. There was a mountain of them in the Demiplane. From those 12 cities, quite a lot of rare metals were also taken from the private collections of the nobility. 26 various aerial surveillance soul tools were also obtained. Although most of them were directly shot down and were damaged beyond repair, the rare metals used to construct them were still useful. It was all good stuff. Bang! Xu Qianran smacked the table beside him, and there was a strong killing intent in his eyes. 5 days ago, good news came from the front lines. The Sun-Moon Empire had completely overrun the Heavenly Soul Empire. This also meant that the Heavenly Soul Empire was utterly ruined, and annexed into the Sun-Moon Empire. This good news left Xu Qianran, a person who craved power, in very high spirits. However, bad news started to pour in only a few days after he heard the good news. There weren't any traces of the Soul Engineer Legion that had caused chaos in the north. It was as if they didn't exist at all. Then the south was subjected to a barrage of attacks. In just a few days, 12 emergency reports were received from 12 different cities in the south. The coastal cities in that area were all in danger, causing a crisis. It was important to know that those cities were very important to the Sun-Moon Empire's economy. The yearly revenue from a medium-sized city in the south was equivalent to that of a major city in the north. Although there weren't many casualties in those 12 cities, fear quickly spread, and the amount of destruction that those cities had been subjected to was also very great. Those living in the south were all terrified, which served to destabilize Xu Qianran's reign. Don't tell me that those people who were still in the north a few weeks ago have mysteriously gone to the south. How is that possible? Your Majesty, I believe that those thieves must have traveled by water, the chief minister said. Xu Qianran looked at him. By water? They attacked the north previously. How can they reach there by water? The ice sea was to the north of the Sun-Moon Empire. Moreover, the ice sea was adjacent to the ice plains of the extreme north. The conditions in the ice plains were very rigorous. No one knew what a further place would be like. To move across the ice plains through the north was impossible. The chief minister said, Your Majesty, it's not impossible. What if they didn't come from the north right from the start? We have a lot of troops at our borders in the north. We also have many aerial surveillance soul tools. It's not easy for a fly to enter, much less a Soul Engineer Legion. The only place that our surveillance soul tools can't reach is the sea. If those thieves moved out from the southern ports of the Star Luo Empire and moved around our southern sea using a ship before proceeding to the north along our western shoreline, they would be able to move around 2/3 of our shoreline and reach the north. Although there are icebergs in the ice sea, there are very few of them nearer to land. We also have few aerial surveillance soul tools installed there. It's possible that Oak City and Eastern Sun City were taken down that way. These fellows are very cunning. After they overran Oak City and Eastern Sun City, they immediately escaped on their ship and returned via their original route. They went all the way to the south. When they reached the south, they attacked once again. The journey from north to south is thousands of kilometers long. It gave us the feeling that we are facing many enemies. Once they finish their attacks, they can immediately escape on their ship again. We wouldn't be able to find any traces of them. From the south, it's also possible to return to the Star Luo Empire at any time. It's a brilliant plan. After hearing the chief minister's words, Xu Tianran was shocked. That's indeed possible. It's actually very possible. If that was really the case, it could well explain why he was so confused. But why are they not attacking our western cities? Xu Tianran was a little confused. The chief minister answered, the reason why they are not attacking our western cities is mainly because they are too far from the Star Luo Empire. Radiant City is also quite close to the west. Once we discover a real-time situation and send a strong Soul Engineer Legion to deal with them, they would be exposed. Furthermore, it's much easier for us to guess what their purpose is if they move from north to west. If they directly return to the south, they can attack and defend. It's more advantageous for them. Xu Tianran squinted. Chief Minister, what do you think we should do then? A cold look flashed across the chief minister's face and he said, Your Majesty, we must be decisive. These thieves are very cunning. Their commander must be very intelligent. Our shoreline is so wide. In the depths of the sea, it's almost impossible to find any traces of them. Since they can move from north to south in just over 10 days, it's likely that they've already calculated for the presence of icebergs in the ice sea. Thus, their ship must be protected and moved by soul tools. It's likely that there's a soul formation on their ship. Since they can't challenge us directly, they are taking the indirect way. Such an enemy is like a parasite. We must get rid of them quickly. Otherwise, they'll cause more destruction and shake the foundation of our economy. This video will end here.